Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. It has been nearly 2 years since I tied the knot in New York City, June 8th to be exact. And since it's wedding season, I thought it would be super fun to recreate and share with you guys from top to bottom my wedding day makeup. Now for those that don't know, I got married in the Conservatory Gardens in Central Park in New York City. I have a massive passion for New York. The very first time I ever visited the city, I actually got proposed to there. So it all came full circle. I'm going to share with you guys some photos, some video clips throughout this tutorial. It's going to be really fun. I am so excited to be making this video. I'm going to be sharing with you each and every single product. I have about 90% of the products that I use. I'm going to try my best to stick as close as possible to the products that I wore on that day to mimic the exact same look. So let's just dive right into it. I did go ahead and prime my face with some moisturizer. I did use the Honey Halo Ultra Hydrating Ceramide Moisturizer to prep my skin and to get some hydration going. And then on top of that, I did layer some of the NYX Honey Do Me Up. Now, this is one part of my wedding day makeup that I don't remember. I honestly cannot remember what I used to prep my skin that day. I actually took a photo of the makeup that I used, but there is no primer in that photo. So I don't know if I forgot or I just simply didn't use one, but nonetheless, that is what I use to prep my skin. Now, for foundation, I'm going to be using the Too Faced Do You Full Coverage Foundation. There was a lot of heat, pretty good amount of humidity in New York City during my trip there, and this foundation just reacted so beautifully with my skin that I just had to use this. We're going to be mixing two shades. I have Golden Beige and the shade Almond. On my wedding day, I actually used just Golden Beige, but I did have quite a bit of a tan going. I am nowhere near as dark as I was on my wedding day. So I'm just going to mix those two shades on the back of my hand here. I'm just going to go ahead and dot this on. There's something about this foundation when there is a little bit of heat and humidity in the air. This is actually not the foundation that I planned on using. I was going to use my L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation, but on my second day in the city, I actually decided to wear this to just kind of give it a test run, and it held up so well. Like, it literally wore all day long, being out and about on the city sidewalks, and I ended up changing my mind and using this as my wedding day foundation. I don't regret it for a second. It held up in 80-degree weather. It looked absolutely beautiful. It warmed up with my skin beautifully. I cannot suggest this foundation enough, especially if you have dry skin and you want to go for a more glowy look. This is absolutely perfect for that. I'm a little bit red recently. I was so lucky on my wedding day as far as like my skin goes. I literally didn't have a single blemish. I had no discoloration to my skin. I had no redness. My skin behaved so good for me on my wedding. Like, that's luck. And I do have very, very hormonal skin. All right, now that my foundation is beautifully blended, let's move on to concealer. Now, this is one of the products that I don't have the exact of that I wore on my wedding day. I actually wore the Jeffree Star Magic Star Concealer. I have decluttered it since. So for this, I'm going to use the Maybelline Age Rewind Concealer. This is in the shade Light 120. This is also my favorite concealer right now. And to be honest, I wish this would have been something I was using at the time or remembered to use, because this concealer is so long wearing. It offers the perfect amount of coverage. It's not too dewy, it's not too matte, and it works for literally all skin, all age types. It is like literally the best concealer. I absolutely love it. So as you can see, I highlighted a bit down my nose, a little bit on my chin, bring some of the excess right here. And I do bring this down just a little bit onto my cheeks, up into the corner of my eye. And this is also going to work as my eyeshadow primer as well. All right, let's move on to setting powders. Now, on my big day, I actually used two different powders, one of which was the Glossier Wowder. This is what I set my entire face with. But on my under eyes at the time, I used the Jeffree Star Magic Star setting powder, which is another one I don't currently have. We are going to use the Fenty Lavender powder powder to set the under eyes. Now this is another powder I would highly recommend for your big day. It really sets everything in place and makes the under eyes look so poreless and flawless and airbrushed. And the lavender shade is also very brightening, which I absolutely love. So I kind of use this in the areas that I tend to be not oily because I have very dry skin, but area where I can get oily, especially if I'm outside in some warmer weather, and I kind of set down where my smile lines and nasolabial folds technically are so I don't get any creasing. Make sure I really pat that in the under eyes. And then I'm also going to set my lids with this as well. And then I will set the remainder of my face with the Glossier Wowder. I actually purchased this in New York City. I visited the Glossier flagship store, which was an awesome experience. One thing I like about this powder is that it is not too mattifying, and it does actually warm up with your skin and gives a beautiful, flawless finish without looking too heavy or too cakey, and it sets makeup beautifully. So now that we have our complexion and our base products down, let's move on to bronzer. So I actually used two different products on my wedding day. I used the Morphe Glamour Bronze Bronzer in Icon, and then I also used the Fenty Beauty Sunstalker Bronzer in the shade Shady Biz. This is a bronzer that I like to actually contour with. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that with an angled brush, and I'm just gonna put that slightly above where I have a natural shadow on my cheeks just to create some shape and some depth. The reason why I like to use this for contours because it's not too cool, it's not too warm. It is the perfect shade to just kind of create some shadow and some definition on the face. I'm just going to go ahead and use that right here as well. The Morphe Glamour Bronze in Icon is a little bit warmer and makes for the perfect bronzer. I didn't use any blush on my wedding day. I wanted to be very, very bronzed and contoured and snatched, as they say. So that was my main goal. I didn't really want to add any rosiness to the cheeks because I do have redness, and I definitely get very red in the heat. Despite the fact that I would be having this full coverage foundation on, I just didn't want the chance of any of that redness peeking through. All right, so let's dip into the Glamour Bronze Bronzer in Icon from Morphe. I'm just gonna take a big powder brush like this. This is from Alter Ego. They have fantastic brushes. Give it a good tap. I like to put a little bit of the excess on the back of my hand here, and I'm just going to kind of stipple that. And this is going to double as bronzer as well as kind of my blush. I love this bronzer shade. It is absolute perfection. Still one of my favorites to this day. My biggest goal here is I just want to make sure that everything looks very soft and blended and lifted. And if you see anything that you just want to blend out further, use your hands. Don't be afraid of doing this. I know it feels like we have to just be so dedicated to our tools, and that is true. We definitely want to be, but don't be afraid to blend with your fingers. It does definitely help. Sometimes your hands can be your best tool. If you feel like you've gone in a little bit too heavy, you can go back in with your beauty blender and just kind of go over that. And then it'll just kind of help pick up some of that excess product and press it right into the skin. Looking in the viewfinder right now, this is looking beautiful. So after I put down a lot of powders, I kind of like to take a break and go in with my brow product. The brow product that I actually used on my wedding day was the Kylie Kybrow Brow Pomade, another product that I no longer have. So we're gonna dip in with something very similar. This is from Tarte. This is the Big Ego Frame Worker Brow Pomade, and this is in the shade Dark Brown. One thing I wish I would have done a little bit differently on my wedding day was my brows. I did them just a little bit too harsh, a little bit too heavy. My brow game has changed quite a bit since I got married, and I definitely have a different taste in my brows. I don't necessarily know if I were to go back in time, if I would stick to using a brow pomade. I just made a mistake right there. I'll go back and fix that in just a moment. Plus the shade I used in the Kylie Kybrow was the shade Ebony. I did pretty much dye my hair very, very dark brown. I'm gonna grab a different mirror here behind me. Very, very dark brown, nearly black before my wedding. It wasn't totally the super wrong color. I think it just was a little bit too harsh. My application was a little bit too harsh. Overall, I just wish I would have went in with a much lighter hand. Now we're gonna go ahead and set that brow down with the Kai Brow. This is the Extreme Hold Clear Gel. This is from Kylie Cosmetics. This still is, to this day, one of my favorite brow gels. I mean, it will hold your brows in place, and it doesn't feel too crunchy, doesn't add any shine or sheen to the brows. It's just a really good brow gel. And again, this is the exact brow gel I used on my wedding day. All right, so we are looking good. Brows are done. Let's go ahead and set the face down. Now for setting spray, I had used the Morphe Continuous Setting Mist, which I just ran out of recently. So instead, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Cover FX Aquamarine Hydrating Crystal Infused Elixir Mist. This is just another very hydrating setting spray, which just like the Morphe spray, it's very hydrating. Now, if you have dry skin and you want to make sure your makeup is lasting you all day, especially if you're getting married outside like I did, there's a chance that it could rain or be humid or very, very warm. Don't be afraid to use two different setting sprays. For example, the Cover FX, this setting spray right here, very, very hydrating. It helps set powders down into the skin. But if you want to make sure you lock everything in place, you can use something like the Urban Decay All Nighter, or my personal favorite right now, this is the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Set and Refresh spray. These two right here will lock your makeup in. I'm telling you, it will not budge. It will stay for hours and hours. So that is an option. Don't feel like you can't use two different setting mists. Right, let's go ahead and move on to highlighter. Now, I do like to wait to put on highlighter until I've set down powders. I feel like highlighter tends to pop a lot more. We're going to use the same exact shade that I used on my wedding day. This is from ColourPop. This is one of their Super Shock Cheeks. This is in the shade On the Cusp. Now, unfortunately, this was from a collaboration that ColourPop did with Kathleen Lights. It's no longer available, sadly. It is one of my all-time favorite highlighter shades, but I do want to go ahead and use it today. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap that on. I do like to apply highlights with my fingers most of the time, even if it's a powder highlight. I like to use my fingers. It just looks so much more natural. It melts right into the skin. If you want a really blinding, glowy, gorgeous look on your wedding day, I would recommend using the Nicole Guerrero Glow Kit that she did in collaboration with Anastasia Beverly Hills. The Too Faced Prismatic Highlighters, especially in the shade Blinded by the Light, is a gorgeous option as well. I'm so sad because I can kind of tell that this is just starting to dry out just a little bit. I've had this for some time, but I'm going to continue to use it till I can't no more. It's just the most beautiful, beautiful mid-tone champagne shade. Absolutely gorgeous. Right, now we get to move on to the fun part, and that is to eyeshadow. Now on my wedding day, I used this very palette right here from Too Faced. This is the Natural Lust eyeshadow palette. Just gorgeous. It screams wedding day. Every time I open up this palette, it reminds me of my Upper East Side Airbnb, sitting in front of the window that faced the street, watching the cars go by with the natural light gleaming into my face. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous sunny day. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect wedding day, and I can just feel all of those emotions and those memories coming back as I was doing my makeup that day and using that palette. It's a gorgeous palette. Like I said, very nostalgic, has such a special place in my heart. I'll probably hold on to this for forever. I don't care if the formula molds over or breaks up. This is just so sentimental to me and holds a lot of meaning. Now, I don't remember the exact shades that I used, so I'm going to try very hard. I'm going to start off with this shade right here, Love Language. I'm just going to use a fluffy brush. This is the Moda BMX 430 crease brush. I'm going to start off with that as my crease and kind of my transition shade. I did a very basic shape. I just followed the natural shape of my eye. I didn't do like a cat eye or a big crazy wing or anything like that. I wanted my makeup to be very natural, yet glam, ethereal, and I wanted to look very effortless. I wanted a very classic neutral look. I'm just going to go ahead and follow the natural shape of my eye, and I'm going to blend, take my time so I don't have any harsh lines. that there's not uneven pigmentation anywhere. I want my makeup looking flush, and this palette is effortless. So that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and dip into this shade next right here. This is Afternoon Delight. I'm gonna stick with that same brush. I'm gonna go ahead again and just work that into the crease, sticking with that natural shape, and just blend, blend, blend. Now, a great alternative to this palette would be the ColourPop Bare Necessities palette. That would make for a gorgeous, 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 gorgeous wedding day palette as well, because it's got all of those soft, warm tones. You've got some cool tones in there as well. So everything is looking beautiful and blended. I'm really satisfied with that. I'm gonna go ahead and take it a step further, warm it up a little bit, and I'm gonna dip into this shade right here, Set in Stone. Again, I'm gonna stick with that same brush. Now, I don't wanna go too heavy-handed with this. I wanna get this really mostly in the crease, just to really kind of carve out the eye. And almost bring that down to the outer corner as well to really deepen and warm things up. Now, just a tip, if you notice, I generally keep my eyes pretty open when I'm doing my eye makeup. That's because I have hooded eyes. If I close my eyes and do all of my makeup like this, and I keep my eyes closed or mostly closed, the second I open them, I'm not gonna see my shadow anymore. When you have hooded eyes, you wanna be able to see that shadow still while your eyes are open, not just when they're closed or when you're looking down. So that is the #1 tip I can give, is to do your shadow with your eyes open if you have hooded eyes, or at least slightly open, to blend everything out so that you can still see the shadow even when my eyes are open. All right, that's looking good. I'm just gonna take a clean brush and I'm just gonna go ahead and go over the edges and just make sure everything is blended, and again, that I don't have any harsh lines. Now I'm gonna go ahead and deepen it up just a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and dip into this shade right here, Spank Me. These names are quite unique, to say the least. Sometimes Too Faced, the stuff that they name their shadows is just a bit odd to me. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's natural lust, but can we not? I'm just kind of tapping that on the outer corner, barely bringing that into the crease. I should mention that I went ahead and kind of switched my brush up. I'm now using the #7 Alter Ego brush, is like a tapered, fluffy crease brush. And that's what I'm using now to kind of work that deeper shade on the outer corners, and just blending that into the crease. So let's go ahead and get a shade all over the lid. I'm gonna use this shade right here, Flirty Pop, as my all over lid shade. Press that all over the lid. I do bring that up, I use my finger and I bring that up even above the crease, just to kind of give the effect of like a faux cut crease. And I don't bring that all the way out to the edge, I just kind of bring it right to that deeper shade that we laid down on the outer corners. God, this look is gorgeous. This palette is so beautiful. It just has every shade you need to create the most beautiful, neutral, ethereal wedding day look. It's just absolutely stunning. All right, so I do want to kind of put something right here to just kind of marry this outer corner shade in with this lid shade, and I'm gonna go ahead and dip into this shade right here, just like that. Pick some up right on my finger. I'm just gonna kind of put that right in the center of the lid, just to kind of blend everything together. I'm gonna go back in with my tapered crease brush. I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure that everything is blended. Make sure I didn't lose too much of that deeper shade. And it looks perfect. Let's go ahead and work on the lower lash line. I'm gonna take this brush right here. This is from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe brush collection. This is the JH40. I'm just gonna go ahead and dip into the shade Afternoon Delight. I'm just gonna run that all along. I need to be looking straightforward here, all along the lower lash line. I'm going to be deepening this up a little bit. I just want to go ahead and put a little something down. All right, and then I'm going to go into this shade right here, Set in Stone, using the same brush. And I kind of focus this more so on the outer part of the eye and just slowly blending that back in. But I want the majority of the pigment to be out here. Bring that almost to like the center of the eye, and then I stop. There we go. Let's go ahead and work on the inner corners. I'm going to take this Jaclyn Hill Morphe brush. This is the JH39. And I'm going to dip into this shade right here, Love Spark. This is the most perfect inner corner brow highlight ever. It is so beautiful. It's just so like champagne-y and frosted and beautiful. Then on the brow bone here. I want to brighten it up just a little bit. I'm going to go into all tied up now. I'm just going to layer that right on top. There we go. Brighten it up even more. Love that. Now what I lined my eyes with, I didn't put anything on the top. Nothing. I just took this Makeup Geek nude eyeliner right here. I actually got this at Target, and I just put this in the waterline. The reason why I went with a nude liner is because I do have kind of, you know, almond shaped hooded eyes, and I wanted to look very bright and awake. Since my eye look is pretty sultry, I thought that this would also keep my eyes from looking too closed off and would look nice and awake in photos. Perfect. I think it just looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and curl my lashes. We are moving right along here. I'm going to use the Benefit Roller Lash. So the eyeshadow, the liner, the mascara, all the exact products that I actually used on my wedding day. I forget about Roller Lash, and every single time I dip into it, I am reminded why I love it so much. It is honestly one of the best mascaras of all time. It is so good, and the reason why this makes for a beautiful wedding day mascara is that despite the fact that it is not waterproof, it did not bleed or flake or break down through cries, through humidity. It was 80 some degrees on my wedding day. It was hot, and I mean the sun was beating down. There was not a single cloud in the sky, not one. So this mascara held up beautifully. Like I said, despite the fact that it's not waterproof, I did not have any issues at all and left my lashes curled the entire time. I mean, this makeup held up so incredibly well. I can't even tell you. Like, it held up all day, all night, through my dinner. It even lasted into the evening, actually, after my wedding ceremony, and then after we went and ate at this beautiful restaurant called Celestine that was under the Manhattan Bridge. Gorgeous scenery. The food was just absolutely divine. Funny story with that is that I actually wanted to go to a place called Ruby Rosa, which was a pizza joint, which is a place that me and my husband went to the first time that we visited New York in 2017. They didn't have any openings. Now, mind you, I tried to reserve this next to a year in advance. So we ended up going to the pizza place Ruby Rosa, which is in Little Italy, and we ended up going there for like the rehearsal dinner the night before the wedding, and then Celestine is what ended up being my wedding day venue, which I found by Googling. Like I said, when I found out that Ruby Rosa wasn't available, I was like, where do I book now? Because I'm not super familiar with New York restaurants. And I just Googled a lot of places, sent some emails out. Celestine was just beautiful, and it worked out so well. I mean, the food was freaking delicious. Some of the best food that I have ever had in my entire life. And a lot of my wedding guests said the same. They were like, this is an experience. This was like insane. It was delicious. Just overall, so fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on to lips. I'm just going to go ahead and hydrate really quickly with some of this Fresh Beauty. This is their Sugar Advanced Therapy Lip Treatment. This is my favorite lip product. And I like to layer lip balm underneath lipstick so things look very plush and hydrated, especially if you do have more mature lips or you have a little bit more fine lines in the lips. Putting a lip balm on before you actually put on your lipstick is super helpful. Now, on my wedding day, believe it or not, just before I actually left for New York, what arrived in the mail to me was the Jaclyn Hill Bullet Lipstick. So this drama literally unfolded. I remember Raw Beauty Christy uploading her video about the lipsticks during my wedding trip to New York, and I actually brought with one of the lipsticks on my trip because I wanted to wear it on my wedding day. Now, I no longer have that bullet lipstick, but I do have one of the Jaclyn liquid lipsticks right here. This is in the shade Oh Hi. Not a huge fan of this formula, but it's a pretty close shade to what I wore on my wedding day, and it is a Jaclyn product, so I wanted to keep it as accurate as possible. So we're going to go ahead and use this. This formula is just quite drying. I just don't like the way it looks on my lips at all, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. Her bullet lipsticks were so good. It's such a shame that those didn't work out. I want her to re-release them so bad. Now, a liquid lipstick is a good idea on your wedding day, especially if you can find one that's very long wearing, because it will last. It will last. It will last. And that's the biggest thing. We want lipstick that will last on our wedding day. Yeah, the actual lipstick that I wore was a little bit darker than this. It wasn't so bright, but I think it's pretty. I think it still works. Not my favorite, but I think it looks gorgeous together. I still think that this look is beautiful despite the fact that I don't have the exact lipstick shade, but here it is. So this is the complete look of the makeup that I wore on my wedding day. Looking in the mirror right now, I get quite emotional because it takes me back. I miss New York so much. I cannot wait until I can go back and visit again. Like I said, I haven't seen myself in this face of makeup since my wedding day, and I absolutely love it. Comment down below what are some of the products that you wore on your wedding day, or if you're not married yet, or if you don't plan on getting married, whatever your preference is. If you've been in a wedding, what makeup did you wear? I would love to hear your stories. I would also love to hear if there was a product that you wore on your wedding day that totally failed you. Did your makeup break down? Was it a total disaster? Give this video a huge thumbs up if you liked it. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Just want to thank you guys so much for watching. This was so fun to do. Recreating this look for you guys was incredible, and it made me super happy. And yeah, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Mwah. Bye guys.